And welcome back. Well, we're taking a look now at another movie coming out during the holiday period. This is The Boys in the Boat, the latest film from director George Clooney, of course, who's also acted in a lot of films over the years. But this new film of his, The Boys in the Boat, is coming out on January the 4th. So you've got to wait a little while for this one. But it basically tells the true story of how the American sculls rowing team ended up at the 1936 Berlin Olympics. It follows a character called Joe Rance, played by Callum Turner, who is in the middle of the Great Depression, but is still studying at college at that time, even though he is practically homeless. Now, he hears of an opportunity to make some money and to get a job if he can secure himself a role on the eight-man sculls rowing team at his college. Now, in order to do that, he has to go through an absolutely rigorous process that is run by the coach played by Joel Edgerton, who himself was a star rower in his day. So the film chronicles him going through that process and then what it was like for the coach to be able to put together this team that ultimately ended up representing America at the 1936 Berlin Olympics. Mate, this is an interesting film because we see a lot of movies made about soccer and about car racing and things like that. You don't see many movies made about rowing. So, what were your thoughts on the boys in the boat?
Yeah, exactly. I was trying to think what was the last movie that I really saw that rowing was a like major part of it, and I think it was the Social Network. The Army Hammer twins in that movie were were rowers, and I think that's the last time I've actually seen it portrayed on screen. I was interested in this film when I found out about it being about the 1936 Olympics because um, despite it being a true story, I didn't know how it would end. Like I didn't know whether these guys actually won gold or whatever at the Olympics because I guess it's one of the very few or if maybe one of the only movies I think I've ever seen about the 1936 Berlin Olympics, which has not been about Jesse Owens.
Yep.
And so there was a lot of ground to cover in this movie. It was a an interesting time period and showing a lot of working class men pretty much in the middle of the Great Depression. They can barely make put money together to actually be in school. I mean, that's what's pushing the character of Joe to become a rower in the first place is because it's basically a way that he'll actually be able to pay for his schooling. So there was a lot of interesting ground to cover in the film, but unfortunately, I didn't really feel myself being dragged into it that much. I thought that the look of the film and the production design and the the costume design, all of that kind of stuff done by the costume design is done by Jenny Egan, and I thought that on a technical level, the film was really well portrayed. But the actual where the movie lost me the most is that uh, I I didn't really know much about the sport of rowing going into the movie, and on coming out of it, I still don't. I feel like I still don't know anything other than the fastest boat wins. I think that I would have really liked to have seen they kind of go over montages of them trying to swap the rowers around and changing different people, and I would have liked to have seen a lot more of that, of the actual tactics and a lot more of the kind of how they work hard in order to be the best that they are. And I would have liked to have seen that, but I feel like a lot of it is really glossed over. It's hinted at, it's shown in there, but it's really glossed over. And another problem is that the there's really the two protagonists of the film, Joe and the coach played by Joel Edgerton, and both of whom I thought was so stoic and so kind of like um hard to get into, that I found them to be very I wouldn't say unlikable characters, but very hard to really empathize with and hard to warm to throughout the movie, especially when, like for the character of Joe, he's going through all emotions. He's got a love interest in the movie, he's got a best friend, but these people just seem to be throwing themselves at him uh, unabated. Like there's nothing about him really trying to maintain a friendship with this other guy that he befriends and is on the team with, or really much about uh the bond between the men on the boat in general. Like there's really only focus on Joe, maybe his friend, and another character whose name I can't even remember, who just is a bit shy. Other than that, there's not really much of a personal aspect of the film to really draw us in. So in some ways like that, I thought that the film was an interesting look back in nearly 100 years, but there wasn't much heart to it for a movie that I think is supposed to be like a really inspiring story.
Yeah, I felt the same way. One of my first feelings after I watched this was thank goodness it looked good, because there's a lot of weaknesses there in the screenplay. Like you mentioned, the friend at the start of the movie, him and his friend are inseparable. Like
Hmm.
they're together all the time, kind of thing. And it's actually his friend's idea, like that they try out for this team. And then once
Yeah.
he's on the team, it's like the friend just drops away. It's like, yeah, it's almost like, well, it was this movie shot during COVID times, and that actor caught COVID, so he had to disappear for a while. Like he just completely disappears. And I also felt that this film, which is surprising because George Clooney is actually quite a good filmmaker, it didn't know how to hold its suspense. It felt to me at times where like there's a classic example in here where one of the most important guys on the team gets sick before a major race. And there's this race of will he be well enough to be able to perform on the day, and um will he even be able to get into the boat? But it felt like what they do with those kind of magazine style films, the ones like Before the Fall, and the the second and third films in the franchise has just gone completely out of my head. Those bondage films.
Oh, Shades of Grey.
Yeah, the second and third Shades of Grey films where they'll have something happen like, oh, he's been in a helicopter accident. I don't know if he's survived. And then 5 minutes later, he'll walk through the door. And it's like,
Yeah.
what, you couldn't hold that suspense for half an hour? Like, that's the kind of thing that fuels a film, is something like that. But it's the same with this character. It's like, oh, he's really sick, he might not be able to be okay to race. And my mind straight away as a writer went to, oh, well, you could flesh this out for like a good half hour, like
Hmm.
these teammates going to check on him to see if he's okay. And then even if he does get into the boat, having close-ups of him like sweating profusely before they've even started to row, like to show that he may not hold up for this race. Because one of the only things I know about this as a sport is I know two things about rowing in Australia. One, we had a team called the Awesome Foursome that used to win everything that was ahead of them. And a couple of years ago, we had a lady who apparently in the women's used to mentally crack during important races and just used to lay down
Oh
in the
yeah.
boat. And she caused Australia to lose like a couple of times over that. So my thought straight away when this guy was sick was, well, you can't have somebody that's only like half there in one of these boats, because if his body crashes during the race, it's all over for all of them. Um, but that kind of stuff didn't get played out. Even at one point, like, I hope this is not a spoiler, but Joe threatens to quit, and it's
Yeah.
like, okay, like that's a big thing. but it's solved within 10 minutes of the film. It's like, yeah, it just felt like George Clooney didn't know how to raise suspense in those scenes, which is strange because the suspense is there during the early races.
Mm.
The races are brilliantly shot. Um, Considering how difficult it is often to shoot sport and put it on the big screen, those scenes are shot really, really well, and the suspense is there. Even when the names are being read out of the people who are on the team, even though you kind of get a fair idea from watching the trailer that Joe makes the team, it's still suspenseful, but then it just falls away completely for the second half of the film.
Yeah, I do think that was a problem with Clooney's direction in it. That it, yeah, it lost any kind of real heart or tension throughout the movie. Some of the, as you say, some of the actual races I thought were filmed excitingly enough. I I I like the way that it kind of showed the bleachers that the people that were watching the race were on, like a train line basically going along with the rowers, and that's something I'd never even thought about. Like how would, like, normally you'd expect to just be like NASCAR or whatever. You see the, you might see the car take off and then disappear for like quite a while
Yeah,
of the race, you know. But no, like, so there was a lot of coverage in it that I thought was done really well. But yeah, I completely agree that it felt like the movie completely lost its a sense of tension, which is, yeah, weird for like, I thought it was odd for a George Clooney movie, because films like Good Night and Good Luck, which was a true story, and
and
uh
Leatherheads, yeah,
yeah, like he's done other like really heartfelt, intense movies. Confessions of a Dangerous Mind, I think, was his first direction film. Yeah, that, like, I've liked a lot of his other films, but yeah, this is just one that I think that it didn't have that real emotional impact to it that I was kind of hoping that it would have. I think it might. I know that the book that it's based on, I think the book that it's based on is 50-50 the story between what the guys in the boat are doing, and also at the same time what the Nazis are doing, basically to fix the 1936 Olympics. And
yeah.
the film touches on that, but in a very different way. And I mean, this is something I actually kind of like, that the movie didn't make a huge, this is kind of what I mean about the film doing a pretty good job of recreating that era. That it would be very easy to, for a filmmaker, it'd be very difficult for a filmmaker not to basically um have the uh, basically have the Nazis be like such cartoon villains in the film itself, as they're portraying it. But the movie doesn't go there. It's kind of like there are moments where it kind of has a sour, there's a sour mood in the air when you see the characters going through like parades of people that are cheering for them, but they're waving like the Nazi flag and stuff like that. There's kind of like a bittersweet nature to that. Um, but I thought that it was interesting that they kept such a a factual look, I guess, at this at these events, and how the world is portrayed. But yeah, it was really lacking in any sort of emotional depth, or, as you say, like a real overall tension. Like Joel Edgerton, of course, is an amazing actor, and yeah, I never got this. I never got any kind of sense of um like growing warmth for the character. Even though he's kind of is going like over this through this arc of like basically sending this the junior varsity team to compete for the Olympics over the seniors and the people who, basically, there's a lot more money behind the other people that he could be sending to compete. He's sending these the basically the scraps because he knows that they're actually the better team. I thought that was really interesting, but yeah, just I never really felt that amount of heart from the film, unfortunately.
Yeah, I feel the same way. So what are you going to give this one out of five?
I'm going to give it 3 out of 5. I think it was like an interesting enough film, and again, on a technical level, as you say, at least it looked pretty. But yeah, but as far as like being like a sports inspirational sports movie, no, it just didn't grab me.
Yeah, I'm giving it 3 out of 5 as well. I think like even there's so many characters in this that are underwritten. Even the Mr. Miyagi Yoda character played by Peter Guinness here is dangerously underused as well. So I'm going to give this one
Mm.
3 out of 5. So both Kyle and I gave The Boys in the Boat 3 out of 5. It is a general release, so make sure you check your local cinema guide to see where it is screening near you come January 4th.